Why do some people walk into a room and opportunities just seem to find them, while others grind for decades and barely move the needle? I'm not talking about privilege or connections. I'm talking about something stranger, something most people never even notice is happening. Here's what nobody tells you. There's an invisible filter between you and wealth. Not a cosmic conspiracy, not bad luck, something you're doing right now in this moment that's either pulling money toward you or pushing it away. And the wildest part, you probably have no idea you're doing it. I've spent years studying people who built fortunes from nothing. Not the trust fund kids, but the ones who started with less than you have right now and somehow cracked a code the rest of us keep missing. And what I found wasn't what I expected. It wasn't about hustle culture or morning routines or networking events. It was something nobody talks about because, honestly, it sounds too simple to be true. But before we go deeper, do me a favor. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from. I'm genuinely curious who's watching this right now. And if you want more content that cuts through the noise and gets to what actually works, subscribe and turn on notifications. Trust me, you'll want to catch the next one. Now back to this invisible filter. Has this ever happened to you? You come up with what you think is a brilliant idea, you're excited, you can see it working, but somehow, when you try to execute, it falls flat. Or maybe you've noticed how some people can fail 10 times and still have investors throwing money at them, while you can't even get a meeting. What's the difference? What are they doing that you're not? Here's where it gets interesting. The people who magnetize wealth, and I mean really magnetize it, not just stumble into it, they operate from a completely different paradigm than everyone else. While most of us are out here chasing opportunities, trying to grab our piece of the pie, trying to convince the universe we deserve more, they're doing something that looks almost lazy by comparison. They're just being, and somehow everything flows to them. I know how that sounds, like some mystical nonsense, right? But stay with me because what I'm about to show you has nothing to do with vision boards or positive thinking or any of that surface level stuff. This is about rewiring something fundamental in how you relate to money, success, and your own value. And yeah, it's going to challenge some things you've been told your whole life. Think about how you feel when you see someone driving an expensive car or living in a massive house. Be honest. What's your first thought? Most people immediately jump to, they must have gotten lucky, or probably born rich, or even they probably did something shady. We've been programmed to believe that wealth is either random or immoral. And that programming, it's the filter. It's the invisible barrier keeping you stuck. The truly wealthy think about money the way you think about breathing. They don't question whether there's enough air for everyone. They don't stress about whether they deserve their next breath. It just is. And that shift in consciousness from scarcity to absolute certainty changes everything. Not just your bank account, but the entire trajectory of your life. What you're about to discover might make you uncomfortable at first. It might contradict what your parents taught you, what society told you was noble or realistic. But here's the thing about this knowledge. It doesn't care whether you believe in it. It's operating right now, in your life, whether you're aware of it or not. The only question is, are you ready to see it? Because once you do, once you understand how this invisible mechanism actually works, there's no going back to the old way of thinking, and that's when everything starts to shift. Let me tell you about the moment I realized I was sabotaging myself without even knowing it. I was sitting in a coffee shop, overhearing two people at the next table talking about a business deal. One of them casually mentioned a number, the kind of money I'd been dreaming about for years, and my immediate visceral reaction was discomfort, not excitement, not possibility, just this tight feeling in my chest and a voice in my head that whispered, "People like us don't make that kind of money. People like us." Where did that even come from? That's when it hit me. I'd been carrying around these invisible scripts my whole life, downloaded straight from my childhood without ever questioning them. Every time my parents said, "We can't afford that," Every time I heard money doesn't grow on trees, every time someone rolled their eyes at wealthy people on TV, all of that got filed away in my subconscious as truth. And here's the kicker. I thought I'd moved past all that. I thought because I consciously wanted wealth, because I set goals and worked hard, that I was different. But my programming was running in the background like malware, quietly blocking every real opportunity that came my way. If you want more content that goes this deep, hit subscribe. This channel is for people ready to move beyond surface-level advice and actually transform their relationship with wealth. Most of us are walking around with this same virus. We've been taught that wanting money makes you greedy, that rich people must have compromised their values, that struggle is noble and ease is suspicious. These aren't just random thoughts, they're chains, invisible but incredibly real. And they don't just affect your bank account. They shape which opportunities you even notice, which risks you're willing to take, which version of success you'll allow yourself to imagine. The transformation starts when you catch yourself in these moments, when you hear yourself say, "I could never do that," or "That's not realistic for someone like me." Stop. Really stop and ask, is that true, or is that just old programming talking? Because here's what I've learned. Your beliefs about money aren't facts. They're just stories you've been told so many times they feel like facts, and stories can be rewritten. Now, I want to go even deeper into this because there's something happening beneath all of this that most people completely miss. We think reality is this fixed, objective thing that happens to us. We're just passengers, right? Wrong. Reality is responsive. It's interactive. And this isn't some woo-woo philosophy. This is about recognizing patterns you can actually observe in your own life. Think about the last time you woke up in a bad mood. Maybe you slept poorly. Maybe something was stressing you out. Notice how the entire day seemed to confirm that mood. Traffic was worse. People were more annoying. Everything felt harder. Now, think about a day when you felt unstoppable. Opportunities seemed to appear. Conversations flowed. Things just worked out. Same life, same circumstances, completely different experience. What changed? Your frequency. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel. It's not just happening in your head. You're broadcasting. You're sending out a signal, and the world around you is picking it up and responding. When you're vibrating at the frequency of, "I never have enough," guess what shows up? More situations where you don't have enough. When you're stuck in "everyone else gets the breaks," you'll keep experiencing exactly that. It's not punishment, it's not bad luck, it's just the system working exactly as it's designed. The wealthy figured this out, consciously or not. They carry themselves like abundance is inevitable. They make decisions from possibility, not fear. They encounter the same setbacks as everyone else, but they don't internalize them as evidence of their limitations. They just recalibrate and keep moving. And because they're operating from that frequency, opportunities recognize them. Money flows toward them. It's magnetic. This is where most personal development advice gets it backwards. They tell you to fake it till you make it, to repeat affirmations you don't believe, to visualize success while your whole body is screaming anxiety. That doesn't work because you're still broadcasting the underlying frequency of doubt. The shift happens when you actually change the signal at its source, when you root out the programming, when you genuinely start seeing yourself differently, when abundance stops being something you chase and becomes something you are. I know this might sound abstract, but I promise you, this has practical implications for every decision you make, who you partner with, which opportunities you say yes to, how you negotiate, how you spend, how you save. All of it flows from this foundational frequency you're operating on. And the beautiful thing is, you can change it. Right now. Today. Not by pretending, but by genuinely questioning the beliefs that have been running your life on autopilot. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to reprogram," Because acknowledging that you've been operating from someone else's script is the first real step toward freedom. And once you take that step, once you start broadcasting a different frequency, you'll be shocked at how quickly your reality begins to shift. Here's what most people don't realize. Changing your frequency isn't some long, complicated process that takes years of meditation or therapy. It can happen in an instant. Literally, you can be vibrating at scarcity right now and in the next breath shift into abundance. The problem is, we've been taught to believe that transformation is always slow, always difficult, always requires suffering. That's just another limiting belief keeping you stuck. Think of it like this. You're walking around with a radio inside you that's been tuned to the same station for years. Let's call it station struggle. It plays the same songs on repeat. You're not good enough. There's never enough to go around. Better play it safe. You've heard these tracks so many times you don't even notice them anymore. They're just background noise. But here's the thing, you've got your hand on the dial. You've always had your hand on the dial. You just forgot it was there. The shift starts with catching yourself mid-broadcast. You're sitting there stressed about bills, running the mental loop of, I can't afford this, I'm so broke, why? Does this always happen to me? And you stop. Right there, you notice the frequency you're transmitting. That awareness alone is revolutionary because most people go their entire lives never questioning the soundtrack in their heads. They think it's just reality. It's not. It's a choice you're making unconsciously, and once you see that, you can make a different choice. But here's where people mess it up. They try to force positivity on top of negativity. They're feeling anxious about money and they start repeating, I am abundant, while their whole body is tight with fear. That doesn't work. The universe doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your actual vibration. You have to feel it, not fake it. Feel it. So instead of forcing affirmations, you shift your state first. Maybe you think about a moment when you felt genuinely grateful, not for anything big, just for something real. The taste of good coffee, a conversation that made you laugh, the fact that you're alive right now, reading this, with infinite possibilities ahead of you. You let that feeling expand. You breathe into it. And from that place of genuine appreciation, of real okayness with what is, you start thinking different thoughts. Not because you're trying to trick yourself, but because you've actually tuned to a different frequency where those thoughts are natural. This is the part that trips people up the most. We've been conditioned to believe that wealth is the goal, the finish line, the thing that will finally make us feel complete. We tell ourselves, once I have the money, then I'll relax, then I'll be happy, then I'll feel secure. But that's backwards. That's like saying, once my shadow is in front of me, then I'll start walking. Your shadow doesn't lead you, it follows you. Wealth is the same way. The people who actually build lasting abundance, not lottery winners who lose it all, not trust fund kids who never had to develop the consciousness to hold it, but people who create wealth from nothing and sustain it. They figured out something crucial. They became happy first. They found peace with where they were before they got where they wanted to go. And that internal state of fulfillment is what magnetized everything else. I know how counterintuitive this sounds. Your logical mind is probably screaming right now. How can I be happy when I'm struggling? How can I feel abundant when my bank account is empty? But that's the whole point. If you can only feel good, when external circumstances are perfect, you're giving all your power away. You're making your inner state dependent on outer conditions, which means you're stuck in reactive mode, forever at the mercy of what's happening around you. The shift is to reverse that equation, to recognize that your inner state creates your outer conditions, not the other way around. When you're genuinely at peace inside, when you've cultivated that frequency of okayness regardless of circumstances, that's when opportunities start appearing. That's when the right people show up. That's when money flows more easily. Not because the universe is rewarding you for being spiritual, but because you've stopped blocking the natural flow with your own resistance and fear. Think about someone you know who always seems stressed, always complaining, always focused on what's going wrong. Do opportunities flock to them? Do people want to partner with them? Do they inspire confidence? Now think about someone who's calm, grounded, genuinely enthusiastic about life even when things aren't perfect. Who would you rather work with? Who seems more trustworthy? Who radiates the kind of energy that makes you think, yeah, this person is going somewhere? Your internal state isn't just affecting you, it's affecting everyone and everything around you. It's determining which doors open, which conversations happen, which ideas come to you. And the beautiful paradox is that once you stop needing wealth to feel complete, once you've found that completeness within yourself, wealth has a way of finding you because you're finally broadcasting the frequency that matches it. Put down in the comments, I choose abundance now, because that simple declaration, that decision to stop postponing your joy until some future achievement, is where real power lives. And once you tap into that, once you realize your state of being is the starting point, not the reward, everything changes. There's this fascinating study Napoleon Hill did over 2 decades. And when I say study, I mean he literally spent 20 years interviewing and analyzing the wealthiest, most successful people of his time. Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, people who built empires from nothing. And you know what the common denominator was? It wasn't intelligence. It wasn't even opportunity. It was something much harder to quantify, but impossible to miss once you saw it. Unshakable faith. But here's what's important too. Understand, this wasn't faith in the religious sense, and it definitely wasn't blind optimism or positive thinking. This was something more visceral, more powerful. It was a bone-deep certainty that what they envisioned would happen, period. Not, I hope this works out, or maybe if I'm lucky. It was, this is already done. I'm just walking through the steps to get there. The difference is massive. Most people operate from hope, which is really just fear dressed up in nicer clothes. Hope says, maybe, possibly, if things go right. Faith says, it's inevitable. And that certainty, that absolute knowing, changes everything about how you move through the world. When you have faith like that, setbacks don't shake you. Rejection doesn't stop you. Other people's doubts don't even register. You're not asking permission from reality. You're declaring what's going to be. If this shifted something in you, hit that like button. It helps this message reach others who need to hear it. And it tells me this resonated with you. I see this play out constantly. 2 people start businesses in the same industry with similar resources, similar skills. One of them has that quiet certainty, that unwavering belief that success is just a matter of time. The other is constantly second-guessing, looking for validation, checking if it's working yet. Guess which one makes it? The universe responds to certainty. People respond to certainty. Opportunities respond to certainty. When you know where you're going, the path has a way of appearing. But faith alone isn't enough if you're still hedging your bets. And this is where most people sabotage themselves without realizing it. They say they want wealth. They say they're committed, but they keep one foot in their comfort zone. They keep the backup plan. They maintain the exit strategy. And look, I get it. That feels responsible, practical, safe. But here's what it really is. It's a failure to decide. The word decision comes from Latin decidere, which literally means to cut off. When you make a real decision, you're cutting away alternatives. You're burning the ships, so retreat isn't an option. The conquistadors did this literally. They'd arrive on foreign shores and burn their boats, so their soldiers had no choice but to move forward. Extreme, sure. Effective, absolutely. Because once retreat is off the table, you'd be amazed what you're capable of. Most people never decide to be wealthy. They prefer to be wealthy. They wish they were wealthy. They'd like it if wealth happened to them, but deciding, that's different. That's looking at your life and saying, this is no longer negotiable. I'm creating abundance, and everything I do from this point forward serves that outcome. No plan B that's really just plan A in disguise. No, well, if this doesn't work out, I can always go back to. Real decision is terrifying because it's irreversible. And that terror is exactly what makes it powerful. I've watched people transform their entire lives in months once they finally, truly decided. Not because deciding magically makes money appear, but because deciding eliminates the internal conflict that was draining their energy. When you're split between wanting success and wanting security, between taking risks and playing it safe, you're essentially fighting yourself. Half your energy is pushing forward, half is pulling back. You're stuck. But the moment you cut off the retreat, when you genuinely commit, all, that energy flows in one direction. You become focused, resourceful, unstoppable. This isn't about being reckless, it's about being honest with yourself. If you've got one foot out the door, if you're building your dream but keeping your safety net overly cushioned, if you're more committed to not failing than you are to succeeding, you haven't decided yet. You're still in the maybe zone, and the maybe zone is where dreams go to die slowly. The wealthy understand this instinctively. When they move all in. They don't dip their toes, they dive, they make the decision, then they figure out how to make it work, not the other way around. Most people wait for certainty before deciding, but that's backwards. The decision creates the certainty. The commitment reveals the path. The burning of ships makes you creative, resourceful, relentless in ways you never would have been with an escape route. So here's the question you need to sit with. Have you actually decided, or are you still shopping around in your own mind, weighing options, keeping alternatives warm, just in case? Because until you cut off the other possibilities, until you make wealth non-negotiable, you're going to keep getting mediocre results. Not because you're not capable, but because you're not fully in the game. Write in the comments, I've made my decision, and really feel what that means. Because once you cross that threshold, once you genuinely commit with no backup plan, the whole game changes. Here's something that messed with my head when I first understood it. The universe is completely deaf to what you're saying, but reads your energy like an open book. You can affirm wealth all day long, post vision boards, set goals, declare your intentions to anyone who'll listen. But if your actual energetic signature is broadcasting scarcity, fear, and limitation, that's what you're going to keep experiencing. It's not about what you want, it's about what you are. I know someone who talks constantly about building wealth, follows every finance guru, reads all the books. But here's what I've noticed when you're actually around them. They flinch at prices. They talk about rich people with this subtle edge of resentment. They stress about every unexpected expense. They're living in a constant state of not enough, and then they wonder why opportunities keep slipping through their fingers. The answer is brutal but simple. They're not a vibrational match for what they say they want. This is the hidden truth nobody wants to hear. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. If you are scarcity, you'll manifest more situations that confirm scarcity. If you are doubt, you'll keep encountering reasons to doubt. If you carry resentment toward wealth, you're literally repelling the very thing you claim to desire. It's like trying to tune into a jazz station while your dial is set to heavy metal. No amount of hoping will change what's coming through your speakers. The shift happens when you stop trying to get something and start being something. And I'm not talking about faking it or pretending or putting on some act for the universe. I'm talking about genuine transformation from the inside out. It starts with a simple question that you ask yourself in every situation. How would the wealthy version of me handle this? Not what would a rich person do. That keeps it external, theoretical, separate from you. But how would I handle this if I were already operating from abundance? How would that version of me think about this problem? How would they make this decision? How would they carry themselves in this conversation? And then, and this is crucial, you act that way, right now, not when you have the money, not when circumstances are perfect, now. At first, it feels weird. It feels like you're playing a role, putting on a costume that doesn't quite fit yet. Your current identity resists it. That voice in your head says, "Who are you kidding? You're not that person." But here's what most people miss. You're not pretending to be someone else. You're actually trying on your own future self. You're allowing a version of you that already exists, just dormant, waiting to emerge and take the lead. I started doing this with small things. Walking into meetings, I'd ask myself, how does the successful version of me enter this room? Does he rush in apologetically, or does he walk in with quiet confidence like he belongs there? When someone offered me an opportunity at a lower rate than I wanted, I'd pause and think, does the abundant version of me accept less than his worth? Or does he calmly hold his value? When unexpected money went out, did future me panic and spiral into scarcity thinking, or did he trust that more was always flowing in? Every single choice became a vote for which version of myself I was strengthening. And here's what happened. Gradually, then suddenly, those choices stopped feeling like acting. They became natural. The wealthy mindset wasn't something I was trying to adopt anymore. It was just how I operated, because I'd been practicing it so consistently that it overwrote the old programming. This is the journey nobody tells you about. Everyone wants the destination, the money, the success, the freedom, but they skip the transformation. They want to keep being who they are and just add wealth on top. Doesn't work that way. You have to become the person who naturally operates at that level. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to wait until you arrive to start. You can start right now, in this moment, with the next decision you make. Your current circumstances don't define who you can be. They're just reflecting who you've been. The moment you start making different choices, thinking different thoughts, taking different actions, carrying yourself differently, you're literally broadcasting a new frequency. And the universe, being the responsive system it is, starts sending back matching experiences. Not immediately, not magically, but inevitably. The people who stay stuck are the ones who keep waiting for external conditions to change before they'll allow themselves to change internally. They think, when I get the money, then I'll feel abundant. But it's the other way around. When you feel abundant genuinely in your bones, when you operate from that place consistently, that's when money starts flowing toward you, because you've finally become a match for it. Drop in. The comments, I'm becoming that version now, because that declaration, that conscious choice to stop waiting and start embodying, is where real power lives. And once you commit to that transformation, once you make it a daily practice instead of a distant goal, the shift becomes undeniable. There's a line that separates people who dream from people who achieve, and it's not talent or resources or connections. It's the intensity of their desire. Napoleon Hill used a specific phrase for this burning desire, and he chose that word deliberately, not wanting, not wishing, not even really hoping, burning. Because anything less than that kind of intensity will evaporate the moment you hit real resistance. Most people think they want wealth. They say it, they might even believe it, but their desire is lukewarm at best. It's a preference, not a conviction. They'd like to be rich, sure, in the same way they'd like to be taller or more talented or luckier. It's passive. It's conditional, and the moment things get uncomfortable, the moment the path gets steep, that weak desire just dissolves. They tell themselves it wasn't meant to be, or it's too hard, or maybe they didn't want it that badly after all. But true burning desire, that's a completely different animal. That's the kind of want that keeps you up at night. That makes you restless with possibility. That turns obstacles into puzzles instead of stop signs. When you have that level of desire, giving up isn't even on the table. You'll find a way, or you'll make one. You'll pivot, adapt, learn, fail, get back up and keep moving. Not because you're stubborn or delusional, but because the alternative, not achieving this thing, is simply unacceptable to you. Think about Thomas Edison testing thousands of materials before finding the right filament for the light bulb, or Oprah being told she wasn't fit for television, or any entrepreneur who bet everything on an idea that everyone else said wouldn't work. That's not casual interest, that's burning desire. That's a level of commitment where failure isn't failure, it's just data, just another step toward the inevitable outcome. Here's what I've noticed about people who actually build wealth. They don't just want it more than others, they want it differently. There's this intensity, this focus, this refusal to accept any reality where they don't succeed. And that energy, that unwavering commitment, somehow bends circumstances in their favor. Doors open, people help, solutions appear. Not because the universe plays favorites, but because that level of desire makes you notice opportunities others miss and take actions others avoid. But, and this is where it gets paradoxical, that burning desire has to coexist with something that seems contradictory, complete non-attachment to needing the outcome. I know that sounds insane. How can you desire something intensely while simultaneously not needing it? But this is the secret that separates those who manifest from those who chase forever. When you need something, you're operating from a deficit. You're essentially telling the universe, I lack this. I'm incomplete without it. I'm desperate for it to arrive. And that energy of need, that frequency of lack, actually repels what you want. It's like trying to fill a cup while simultaneously punching a hole in the bottom. The harder you grasp, the more it slips away. But when you desire from wholeness, from a place of already being complete, everything changes. You're not a beggar hoping someone throws you scraps. You're a king who sees something valuable and decides to add it to your kingdom. The difference is massive. A beggar needs because they're empty. A king desires because they're already full and choosing to expand. One broadcasts desperation, the other broadcasts power. This is why some people can work incredibly hard and stay broke, while others seem to attract wealth effortlessly. The struggling person is operating from need. They need the money to feel secure, to feel worthy, to feel like they've made it. Every action is tinged with that desperate energy. But the person who magnetizes wealth? They're operating from desire without attachment. They want it, they're moving toward it, but they're already okay, already whole, already abundant in spirit, just waiting for the material to catch up. I had to learn this the hard way. For years, I was chasing money from a place of deep need. I needed it to prove something, to feel safe, to stop feeling like a failure. And guess what? It kept evading me. The harder I chased, the faster it ran. But the moment I found peace with where I was, not complacency, but genuine okayness with my current situation while still holding my vision, that's when things started flowing. Because I'd shifted from needing to desiring, from grasping to allowing, from beggar to king. The transformation isn't about killing your desire, it's about purifying it, stripping away the neediness, the desperation, the attachment to it having to happen a certain way or by a certain time. What's left is pure, powerful desire, focused and intense, but also patient and confident. You know it's coming. You're working toward it, but you're not holding your breath waiting for it to arrive before you allow yourself to be happy. Put in the comments, I desire from wholeness, because that shift from needing to desiring, from lack to abundance, from beggar to king, is the energetic pivot that changes everything. And once you feel that difference in your body, once you know what it's like to want something powerfully while also being completely at peace, Once you understand that shift from needing to desiring, there's another layer that amplifies everything, and it's something most people completely misunderstand. They treat gratitude like a polite social nicety, something you're supposed to feel when good things happen. But gratitude is actually a technology. It's a specific frequency. You can tune into that, literally reorganizes your relationship with reality. Here's how it works. When you feel genuine gratitude for something, you're sending a clear signal to the universe. Yes, more of this. I recognize this as valuable. I appreciate it. Send more experiences like this. And the universe, being the responsive mirror it is, delivers. Not because it's rewarding you for being a good person, but because you're broadcasting a frequency of abundance, of having, of appreciation. And you get more experiences that match that frequency. But watch what most people do instead. They focus relentlessly on what they don't have, the bills they can't pay, the opportunities they missed, the success other people are experiencing that they're not. Every complaint, every "why doesn't this ever work for me?" every moment of resentment toward others' wealth, all of that is sending a signal too. More of this, please. More lack, more frustration, more reasons to complain. And guess what? Arrives. Exactly that. It's not punishment, it's not karma. It's just the system responding to your dominant frequency. If you're constantly tuned to what's missing, you're going to manifest more situations where things are missing. If you're tuned to what I'm grateful for, even if it's small, even if it seems insufficient, you're going to manifest more things to be grateful for. It's mechanical. It's reliable. It's always working. I started testing this obsessively every time I caught myself spiraling into scarcity thinking. I'd force a pivot, not to fake positivity, but to genuine appreciation for something real. The coffee I was drinking, the roof over my head, the fact that I had internet access and could learn anything I wanted. Small things, but I'd really feel the gratitude, let it sink in. And something started shifting. Opportunities I hadn't noticed before suddenly became visible. People reached out unexpectedly. Money showed up from forgotten sources. Not because gratitude magically made things appear, but because I changed my frequency, and suddenly I was tuned to a different station where those things were broadcasting. But there's an even more advanced application of this that most people never discover. You can be grateful for things that haven't physically manifested yet. You can feel appreciation for the wealth that's on its way, the opportunities that are forming, the abundant life that already exists in potential and is just waiting to materialize. And when you do this, when you genuinely feel gratitude for the unseen, you collapse the distance between where you are and where you're going. This sounds crazy to the logical mind. How can you be grateful for something you don't have? Isn't that just delusional? But here's what you're missing. In the energetic realm, in the field of all possibilities, that abundant version of your life already exists. It's not fiction. It's not fantasy. It's a real potential waiting to be pulled into physical form. And gratitude for it, genuine felt appreciation for what's coming, acts like a magnet, pulling that future toward you faster. Think about it this way. If you only feel grateful when you see physical evidence, you're always operating from the past. You're reacting to what's already happened. But when you feel grateful for what's emerging, what's manifesting, what's on its way, you're operating from the future. You're standing in the outcome energetically before it shows up materially. And that's when things accelerate. I know people who thank their future wealth every morning. They feel appreciation for the opportunities that are aligning right now, even though they can't see them yet. They express gratitude for the breakthrough that's coming, the connection that's forming, the idea that's about to land. And these aren't desperate affirmations or wishful thinking. These are people who've cultivated such a strong sense of trust in how the universe works that gratitude for the unseen feels as natural as gratitude for what's already here. This is faith in action, not passive hope, not blind belief, but active recognition that the invisible realm precedes the visible one, and if you can hold the frequency of gratitude for what exists there, it has no choice but to show up here. It's like sending out a beam of light into the darkness and watching it attract exactly what you've been calling forward. The transformation happens when you stop waiting for evidence to feel grateful and start using gratitude to create evidence. When you make appreciation your default state instead of your reaction to good circumstances. When you recognize that you always have something to be grateful for, even if it's just the fact that you're conscious, breathing, alive with infinite potential ahead of you. Write in the comments, grateful for what's already mine, because that declaration, that choice to thank the universe for what's manifesting before you see, it shifts you into a frequency where manifestation happens faster, easier, with less resistance. And once you start operating from that place consistently, you'll be shocked at how quickly your reality rearranges itself. Once you start living in that state of gratitude for what's already yours energetically, something uncomfortable surfaces. And this is where most people hit a wall they didn't even know existed. Your relationship with money. Not what you think about money intellectually, but how you actually feel about it in your gut, in your bones, when nobody's watching. Money is brutally honest. It's like an emotional X-ray that reveals everything you've been hiding from yourself. Watch how you react when you receive it. Do you feel genuine joy and ease, or is there this subtle discomfort, this voice whispering, "I don't deserve this," or "this won't last"? Notice what happens when you spend it. Do you feel abundant and trusting that more is coming? Or do you clench up with fear? Like every dollar that leaves is bringing you closer to ruin. And here's the really revealing one. How do you feel when you see someone else succeeding financially? Be honest. Is your first reaction genuine happiness for them? Or is there a flash of jealousy, resentment, or judgment? Do you immediately start creating stories about how they probably got lucky, or came from money, or did something unethical? Because every one of those reactions is showing you exactly where your blocks are. Most people have this toxic relationship with money, and they don't even realize it. They want it desperately, but resent people who have it. They claim to value it, but feel guilty when they receive it. They say they're ready for abundance, but their nervous system goes into panic mode at the thought of actually having significant wealth. It's like trying to attract a partner while simultaneously being terrified of intimacy. The signal you're sending is completely confused, and the universe can't respond clearly to mixed frequencies. I had to face this in myself. For years, I had this unconscious belief that having money would somehow make me a bad person, that wealth and integrity couldn't coexist, that if I became rich, I'd lose the things that actually mattered. Where did that come from? Childhood messages about rich people being greedy, religious undertones about poverty being virtuous, media portrayals of wealthy people as villains. None of it was true, but it was operating in my subconscious like malware, silently sabotaging every opportunity. The healing starts when you get ruthlessly honest about these patterns, when you stop pretending you're fine with money and actually examine the fear, the shame, the weird discomfort that shows up around it. Because until you clean up that relationship, you've got an internal thermostat set to a certain level of worthiness, and no matter what you do externally, you'll keep returning to that set point. Win the lottery. You'll unconsciously find ways to lose it. Get a raise, unexpected expenses will eat it up. Start a business that takes off, you'll self-sabotage right before the breakthrough. It's not conscious. That's what makes it so insidious. Your conscious mind wants wealth, but your subconscious has been programmed with all these contradictory beliefs, and the subconscious always wins. It's running the show behind the scenes, making decisions, filtering opportunities, keeping you locked in familiar patterns, even when those patterns are destroying you. But here's the revelation that changed everything for me. Abundance isn't something you need to acquire from outside yourself. It's not out there waiting for you to work hard enough or get lucky enough to claim it. There's a spring inside you, an infinite source of abundance that's been flowing this entire time. It's your connection to the creative force of the universe, to source, to whatever you want to call that infinite intelligence that's orchestrating all of this. That spring has never stopped flowing. Not when you were broke, not when you failed, not when you made terrible decisions. It's always been there, always available, always ready to pour abundance into your life. But most people have covered it up completely. They've piled stones of doubt on top of it, rocks of fear, debris of limiting beliefs inherited from parents, society, past failures. And then they wonder why they feel dried up, why opportunities don't come, why wealth feels impossible. Your only job, your real work, isn't to create abundance. It's to remove the blockages, to clear away the stones one by one, to dismantle the beliefs that are choking off the flow. And you do that through everything we've been talking about: changing your thoughts, healing your relationship with money, practicing gratitude, embodying your abundant self. Each of these is you removing another obstacle, creating more space for the spring to flow freely. The moment you realize you're not empty, you're not lacking, you're not separated from abundance, you've just been blocking your own source, everything shifts. You stop looking outside yourself for validation, for permission, for someone to give you what you think you need. You turn inward, you clear the channel, and you let what's already yours flow through. Drop in the comments, "My abundance is already flowing," because that recognition that you're not trying to get something you don't have, but simply allowing what's already there to emerge, is the shift that makes everything else possible. Once you recognize that abundance is already flowing within you and you start clearing those blockages, the next challenge surfaces, and it's one that trips up even people who understand everything we've talked about so far. It's the question of alignment. Not alignment with some external standard, but internal alignment. Getting every part of yourself, your thoughts, your words, your emotions, your actions, pointed in the same direction. Most people are walking contradictions. They think about wealth but talk about struggle. They want abundance but make every decision from scarcity. They declare they're ready for success, but their daily habits scream, "I'm not serious about this." It's like trying to drive with one foot on the gas and the other on the brake. You're burning energy, creating friction, going nowhere fast, and then wondering why nothing's working. I see this constantly. Someone tells me they're committed to building wealth, but then I watch them make choices. They won't invest in themselves because it's too expensive. They won't take calculated risks because what if it doesn't work out? They won't change their routine because this is just who I am. Every single one of those decisions is a vote for their current reality, not their desired future. They're misaligned. Their words say one thing, their actions say another, and the universe responds to actions, not intentions. True alignment is when there's no gap between what you think, what you say, what you feel, and what you do. When you declare abundance and then act abundantly. When you claim you're worthy and then make decisions that honor that worth. When you say you're committed and then prove it through consistent action, even when nobody's watching. That's when you become unstoppable. That's when momentum builds. That's when the universe has a clear signal to respond to. But here's what nobody warns you about. The moment you achieve real alignment, the moment you get all your energy flowing in one direction toward your vision, resistance shows up. And it shows up hard. This is the phase where most people quit because they misinterpret what's happening. They think the resistance means they're doing something wrong, that it's a sign to turn back, that the universe is telling them no. It's the opposite. Resistance is confirmation you're on the right path. It's the last test before the breakthrough. Think about it. Right when you're finally getting traction, suddenly unexpected bills appear. The opportunity you were counting on falls through. People close to you start questioning your choices. Massive doubt floods your mind. Everything that could go wrong seems to go wrong all at once. And it feels personal, like the universe is working against you. But resistance isn't personal, it's mechanical. It's what happens when you're about to shift to a new level of reality. Your old patterns, your familiar identity, the comfort zone you've been living in. They're fighting to survive. They know that if you break through, they die. So they pull out every weapon they have. Fear, doubt, manufactured crises, social pressure, anything to get you to retreat back to the familiar. I've watched people get within inches of their breakthrough and then collapse under resistance. They were so close. I could see it. Everyone around them could see it. But they interpreted the intensity of the challenge as evidence they weren't meant to succeed. They gave up right before the finish line. And the tragedy is, if they'd just held on a little longer, if they'd recognized resistance for what it was, everything would have shifted. There's this phenomenon in physics where the darkest moment of night is right before dawn. The same principle applies here. The resistance is most intense right before your breakthrough because that's when the gap between your current reality and your new reality is smallest. You're almost through. The old you is dying, the new you is being born, and that transition point is always chaotic, always uncomfortable, always makes you want to quit. The people who make it are the ones who understand this pattern. They expect resistance. They welcome it even, because they know what it signifies. When everything seems to be falling apart, when doubt is screaming, when every logical reason to quit is presenting itself, they don't interpret that as failure. They interpret it as proximity to success. They lean in harder. They double down on their practices. They refuse to retreat. This isn't blind optimism. This is pattern recognition. Every major success story includes a chapter where everything went to hell right before everything came together. The entrepreneur who almost went bankrupt before their company exploded. The artist who faced rejection after rejection right before their breakthrough. The person who was ready to give up the day before the opportunity of a lifetime appeared. This isn't coincidence. This is how transformation works. Put in the comments, I'm pushing through, because that declaration, that refusal to interpret resistance as a stop sign, is what separates those who transform their lives from those who stay stuck in familiar patterns. And once you understand that resistance is actually evidence you're close, that the breakdown is part of the breakthrough, once you stop seeing resistance as the enemy and start recognizing it as part of the process, something profound happens. You develop a completely different relationship with obstacles. They stop being reasons to quit and become opportunities to level up. Every setback becomes a chance to strengthen your faith. Every doubt that surfaces is an invitation to reaffirm your certainty. Every person who criticizes your vision gives you a chance to solidify it even more. I learned this watching people who actually built something significant. The ones who failed weren't less talented or less lucky. They just interpreted resistance differently. When obstacles showed up, they took it personally. They made it mean something about their worthiness, their capability, their chances of success. They let resistance defeat them. But the people who broke through, they had this almost perverse gratitude for challenges, not in some toxic positivity way, but because they understood that every obstacle was refining them, preparing them, proving they were serious. Think about how a muscle grows. It doesn't grow from comfort. It grows from resistance, from being stressed beyond its current capacity, from micro tears that rebuild stronger. Your capacity for wealth is the same. If everything came easy, if you never faced doubt or setbacks or moments where you wanted to quit, you wouldn't develop the internal strength to hold significant abundance. The resistance isn't trying to stop you. It's forging you into someone who can handle what's coming. The weak surrender when resistance appears. They take it as confirmation that they weren't meant for this, that it's too hard, that maybe they should just accept their current limitations. The strong push through it. They grit their teeth, they persist, they refuse to let resistance win. But the wise thank it. They see resistance show up and think, perfect. This means I'm close. This means I'm being prepared. This means what I'm building is significant enough to require this level of testing. That shift in perspective changes everything. You stop being a victim of your circumstances and become an active participant in your own transformation. Every challenge becomes evidence you're on the right path, rather than evidence you should turn back. And that reframe, that ability to metabolize resistance into fuel, is what makes you unstoppable. But there's an even deeper layer to this that most people never access, and it has to do with how we think about time itself. We're conditioned to believe that wealth is somewhere in the future, that success is a destination we're traveling toward, that the abundant version of our life exists someday, if we work hard enough and long enough. But that's not how reality actually works. In the quantum field, and I'm not talking mystical nonsense here, this is actual physics, all possibilities exist simultaneously right now. The version of you that's struggling financially exists. The version of you that's abundantly wealthy exists. The version of you that's exactly where you want to be exists. They're not future possibilities. They're current realities, vibrating at different frequencies, like radio stations all broadcasting at the same time. You're not creating your abundant future from scratch. You're tuning into a frequency where that abundance already exists. Right now, in this moment, there's a version of your life where money flows easily, where opportunities appear constantly, where you're operating at the level you've been dreaming about. It's real, it's happening. You're just not tuned to it yet. This is why all the work we've been talking about, changing your thoughts, healing your relationship with money, practicing gratitude, embodying abundance, isn't about becoming someone new. It's about adjusting your frequency to match a version of you that already exists. You're not building from zero, you're tuning from one station to another. And here's what's wild. The tuning can happen instantly, not gradually over years. Instantly. Because you're not waiting for external circumstances to slowly change. You're shifting your internal frequency, and the moment that frequency changes, you start perceiving and attracting different experiences. The opportunities were always there. You just weren't tuned to see them. The abundance was always available. You just weren't vibrating at the frequency to receive it. I've seen this happen. Someone spends years struggling, doing everything right externally, but stuck in a scarcity, frequency internally. Then something clicks. They get the shift, they adjust their frequency, and within weeks, sometimes days, their entire reality reorganizes. Not because the universe suddenly decided to bless them, but because they finally tuned into the channel where their abundance was already broadcasting. Write down, I'm tuning to my abundance now. Because that declaration, that recognition that you're not waiting for something to be created, but simply adjusting to receive what already exists, collapses the illusion of time, and once you grasp that your wealthy life isn't in the future, but in a different frequency, you can access right now. Once you understand that abundance exists right now on a different frequency, the next question becomes obvious. Why doesn't everyone just flip the switch instantly? Why do some people stay stuck for years while others seem to transform overnight? The answer isn't what you'd expect. It's not that the universe is slow to respond. It's not. That manifestation takes time to cook. The delay, if there is one, is you preparing internally to handle what you've asked for. Reality responds to frequency shifts immediately. The moment you genuinely change your vibration, matching experiences start moving toward you. But here's the thing most people miss. You can't sustain a frequency you're not ready for. You can have a moment of clarity, a peak experience where you feel abundant and certain. But if your nervous system isn't conditioned to hold that state, you'll snap back to your baseline like a rubber band. That's why lottery winners often end up broke. The money arrived instantly, but they hadn't done the internal work. Their frequency hadn't actually shifted. They just got a windfall while still vibrating at scarcity. So their subconscious found creative ways to return them to familiar territory. Lost fortunes, bad investments, suddenly everyone needs something from them. It's not bad luck. It's misalignment between what they received and who they were internally. The time between desire and manifestation isn't the universe processing your request. It's you expanding your capacity to receive and hold what's coming. It's you clearing out the beliefs that would sabotage it. It's you becoming someone who can naturally operate at that level. And the beautiful thing is, once you're truly ready, once the internal shift is complete, manifestation happens so fast it'll make your head spin. Doors you've been knocking on for years suddenly fly open. Opportunities appear out of nowhere. Money flows from unexpected sources, not because you finally earned it, but because you finally became a match for it. But there's something else that accelerates this entire process, something that creates a completely different relationship with wealth. It's the shift from seeing abundance as something you accumulate for yourself to seeing it as something that flows through you to serve others. This isn't about charity or giving away everything you have. This is about connecting your desire for wealth to a purpose bigger than your personal comfort. When you're chasing money just for yourself, just to feel secure or successful or validated, there's a ceiling to how much you can magnetize, because at some point your nervous system says, okay, we're good, we're safe now, we don't need more. But when you attach your abundance to service, to impact, to solving problems or helping people or creating something meaningful, suddenly there's no ceiling, because it's not about you anymore. It's about what you can do with that abundance. I've watched this play out countless times. Two people start with the same goal, build wealth. One is doing it purely for personal gain. The other has connected their financial success to a larger mission. Maybe they want to provide for their family in ways they never experienced. Maybe they want to fund a cause they care about. Maybe they have a vision for creating jobs or solving a problem or leaving a legacy. The person with the bigger why always goes further. Always. Because they're not a container trying to fill themselves up. They're a channel that abundance flows through. Channels don't run dry. That's the secret. When you're just accumulating, hoarding, building your pile, there's always this underlying fear of losing it. But when you see yourself as a conduit, when wealth flows to you and through you, serving something greater, the flow becomes self-sustaining. The more you give, the more comes in. Not because you're manipulating the universe with generosity, but because you've aligned with how abundance actually works in nature. Everything in the natural world that thrives is in flow. Rivers that flow stay fresh. Rivers that stagnate become toxic. Trees that give fruit multiply. Trees that hoard die from their own weight. The universe rewards circulation, contribution, service. And when you anchor your wealth building to that principle, when you become someone who uses abundance to create impact, you tap into a current that's infinitely more powerful than personal ambition alone. This completely reframes what wealth is for. It's not the finish line. It's not the prize. It's fuel. It's leverage. It's a tool to amplify your ability to serve, to create, to contribute. And people who understand this, who've made that shift from what can I get to what can I give, they don't just build wealth, they build legacies. Leave a comment. Abundance flows through me, because that recognition that you're not the end point but the vehicle transforms your entire relationship with money and unlocks levels of prosperity that pure self-interest never could. Once you've connected your abundance to something bigger than yourself, there's a trap waiting that catches almost everyone. And it's subtle enough that people don't realize they've fallen into it until years have passed. It's the trap of staying in the mental realm, of thinking and visualizing and affirming without ever actually moving. Thought without action is just fantasy. Vision without movement is just daydreaming. And all the faith in the world means nothing if you're not willing to prove it through what you actually do. The universe absolutely responds to your frequency, to your beliefs, to your internal state. Everything we've talked about is real and necessary, but here's what the spiritual community often glosses over. The universe also demands proof. It watches what you do, not just what you think. Your actions are the ultimate statement of what you actually believe, regardless of what you're telling yourself or others. You can affirm, "I am abundant," 1,000 times a day. But if you won't invest in yourself, if you won't take calculated risks, if you're still making every decision from fear of loss, your actions are screaming a different story. And the universe reads your actions as the truth. You don't attract what you want. You attract what your behavior demonstrates you believe is possible and deserved. I see people who've been manifesting the same goal for years. They've got the vision board, they do the meditations, they talk about it constantly. But when you look at their daily choices, nothing has changed. They're still operating exactly as they were when they started. Same routines, same habits, same risk tolerance. They want a different result while being the same person doing the same things. That's not manifestation. That's magical thinking. Real transformation requires you to move differently, to make choices that scare you a little, to invest before you feel ready, to take action even when you can't see the full path. This is where faith becomes tangible. When you bet on yourself through your behavior, when you put skin in the game, when you make moves that only make sense if what you're believing is actually true. But, and this is crucial, there's a massive difference between action that comes from inspiration and action that comes from desperation. Both look like hustle from the outside, but the energy is completely opposite. Ego-driven action is frantic, it's anxious, it's exhausting. You're moving from fear, fear of failure, fear of being left behind, fear that if you don't hustle hard enough, you won't be enough. That kind of action might produce results temporarily, but it'll burn you out. It's unsustainable, and it's still broadcasting scarcity, just dressed up as productivity. Soul action is different. It's focused but relaxed, persistent but joyful. There's effort, sure, but it doesn't feel like suffering. You're moving because you're inspired, because you're aligned, because the action itself feels like an expression of who you're becoming, rather than a desperate attempt to escape who you are. Soul action energizes you. Even when you're working hard, you finish the day feeling more alive, not depleted. The way you know which one you're operating from is simple. Check in with your body. Ego action makes you tight, contracted, anxious. Your jaw clenches, your breath gets shallow. There's this undercurrent of panic even when things are going well. Soul action opens you up. Your body feels expansive, your breath flows. There's this quiet confidence underneath the effort. You're working with the universe, not fighting against it. Most people are grinding themselves into the ground with ego action and wondering why abundance feels so hard. They're doing, but from a place of fear and lack. And that energy poisons everything they touch. Their work feels heavy, their relationships suffer, their health deteriorates. They might achieve some external success, but it doesn't satisfy because it was built on a foundation of not enough. The shift happens when you learn to move from fullness instead of emptiness. When you take action, not because you're desperately trying to fix your life, but because you're excited to express and expand what's already emerging. When your hustle comes from inspiration rather than compensation for feeling inadequate, that's when work stops feeling like work. That's when effort becomes energizing instead of draining. And here's the paradox. Soul action often produces better results with less suffering, because when you're moving from alignment, from genuine inspiration, you make smarter decisions. You see opportunities more clearly. You attract support more easily. People want to work with someone who's energized and inspired, not someone who's anxious and desperate. The universe responds to the energy behind the action, not just the action itself. Put down, I move from inspiration, because that commitment to checking your energy before you act, to choosing soul-driven movement over fear-driven hustle, changes not just how much you accomplish, but how it feels to accomplish it. Once you're moving from that place of inspired action rather than desperate hustle, there's another dimension that amplifies everything. And it's one most people completely underestimate because they think it's just child's play. I'm talking about your imagination, not as some creative hobby or way to pass time, but as the most potent reality creation tool you possess. Everything you see around you that was made by humans started as imagination. The device you're watching this on, the building you're in, the entire infrastructure of modern life, all of it existed first as mental images in someone's mind, before becoming physical. Your abundant life works the same way. It has to exist in your imagination before it can manifest in your bank account. Einstein understood this when he said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." Not equally important, more important, because knowledge tells you what is, but imagination shows you what could be. And in the gap between what is and what could be, that's where creation happens. That's where you build the blueprint for your future reality. But here's where most people get it wrong. They treat imagination like a casual daydream. They think about their ideal life for a few scattered minutes, with no real feeling or focus, and then wonder why nothing changes. That's not using imagination. That's just entertaining yourself with pleasant thoughts. Real imagination, the kind that reshapes reality, is disciplined. It's vivid. It's felt deeply in your body. It's so real in your mind that your subconscious can't tell the difference between the image and actual experience. And that's the key that unlocks everything, your subconscious mind, the part of you that's actually running 90% of your life, making decisions, filtering opportunities, creating your automatic responses. It can't distinguish between something you've vividly imagined and something you've actually lived. To your subconscious, both are equally real. Both create the same neural pathways. Both generate the same emotional imprints. Both shape your identity and expectations. Think about what that means. If you can imagine your wealthy life with enough detail and feeling that your subconscious accepts it as reality, it will start organizing your behavior and perceptions to match that reality. Not because you're tricking yourself, but because you're essentially training your nervous system to operate at a different level. You're pre-programming your responses, your confidence, your decision-making to align with someone who already has what you're building toward. Athletes use this all the time. They visualize the perfect performance so vividly, so repeatedly, that when they step into the actual competition, their body knows what to do. It's already experienced success hundreds of times in imagination. The same principle applies to wealth. If you can imagine yourself operating successfully, making confident decisions, receiving abundance with ease, and you do this with enough sensory detail and emotional intensity, your subconscious starts believing that's who you are, and then it filters reality through that lens. Opportunities you would have missed before suddenly become obvious because your subconscious is now scanning for them. Risks that would have paralyzed you feel manageable because you've already experienced navigating them successfully. Conversations happen differently because you're showing up with the energy of someone who's already arrived, even if your external circumstances haven't caught up yet. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't affirmations you don't believe. This is reprogramming your operating system through deliberate mental rehearsal. And the science backs this up. Your brain fires the same neurons whether you're actually doing something or vividly imagining doing it. Same activation patterns, same biological response, which means you can literally train yourself into a new identity through consistent, detailed visualization. But it has to be consistent, it has to be detailed, and most importantly, it has to be felt. You can't just see yourself wealthy. You have to feel how it feels. The relief, the confidence, the freedom, the gratitude. You have to taste it, smell it, hear it. Make it so real in your inner world that when it shows up in your outer world, it doesn't feel new. It feels like coming home to something you've always known was yours. The transformation happens in that space where imagination becomes so vivid and consistent that your subconscious accepts it as memory rather than fantasy. And once that shift occurs, once your internal reality changes, your external reality has no choice but to follow. Not eventually, not someday, but as quickly as you can sustain the new frequency. Write in the comments, "I create with my imagination," because that acknowledgement, that recognition of imagination not as escapism, but as the workshop where your future is being built right now, is the beginning of conscious creation at its highest level. Once you understand that your subconscious can't tell the difference between vivid imagination and reality, the question becomes, how do you actually use this? There's a specific technique that cuts through all the noise, and it comes from a teacher named Neville Goddard, who spent his entire life studying consciousness and manifestation. His method is deceptively simple, but devastatingly effective when you actually do it consistently. Every night before you fall asleep, you enter that drowsy state where you're not quite awake but not fully asleep yet, that liminal space. And in that state, you don't visualize your desire as something you're hoping for in the future. You assume the feeling of already having it, right now, present tense. You imagine the scene that would naturally occur if your desire had already manifested, and you loop that scene until you drift off to sleep. The key word is feeling. You can visualize all day long, create the most detailed mental movies, but if there's no emotion attached, if you're not actually feeling the reality of it in your body, nothing happens. The feeling is what impresses the image onto your subconscious. The feeling is what tells your deeper mind, this is real, this is now, this is who we are. And when you do this consistently in that twilight state before sleep, when your conscious mind is relaxed and your subconscious is most receptive, you're literally programming your operating system. I started doing this with small things first, just to test if it worked. I'd imagine receiving a specific amount of money, feeling the relief and gratitude of it. Or I'd imagine a particular conversation going well, feeling the ease and confidence of it. And what happened consistently was bizarre. The things I'd impressed on my subconscious before sleep would show up in my waking life, often within days. Not because I'd magically manifested them out of thin air, but because I'd programmed my mind to notice opportunities, to act differently, to be the person for whom those things were natural. The reason this works is because you're catching your mind at the exact moment when the barrier between conscious and subconscious is thinnest. During the day, your logical mind filters everything, questions everything, resists anything that contradicts your current reality. But right before sleep, that filter softens. Your subconscious becomes suggestible. And whatever you impress upon it in that state, especially if it's charged with emotion, gets accepted as truth. Then your subconscious goes to work overnight, reorganizing your perceptions, your decisions, your behavior to align with that new truth. But here's where people sabotage themselves without realizing it. They do the visualization before sleep. They feel the feeling of the wish fulfilled. They drift off feeling abundant and certain. And then they wake up, and within minutes, fear floods back in. All the old doubts, all the catastrophic thinking, all the worst-case scenarios their mind loves to rehearse. And every one of those fears is erasing the work they did the night before. Fear is one of the most effective blockers of manifestation because it's so convincing. It feels real. It feels like you're being responsible, preparing for disaster, protecting yourself. But most of the time, fear is just false evidence appearing real. It's your imagination running worst-case simulations that have almost no basis in probability. Think about it. How many things have you been terrified of that never actually happened? How much energy have you spent preparing for catastrophes that never arrived? Fear is your mind's way of keeping you in familiar territory. It's a survival mechanism that worked great when we were avoiding predators. But it's terrible for building wealth because wealth requires you to move into unknown territory, to take risks, to bet on yourself. And fear will always have 1,000 reasons why you shouldn't. The investment could fail. The opportunity could be a scam. You could embarrass yourself. You could lose everything. On and on, an endless parade of nightmare scenarios that feel completely plausible in the moment. But when you actually examine your fears closely, when you drag them into the light and look at them rationally, they shrink. That massive terror that was paralyzing you becomes a manageable risk, a calculated chance, something you could survive even if it went wrong. Most of our fears are ghosts. They have no substance, but we give them power by believing in them, by treating them as if they're prophetic rather than just our imagination misfiring. The transformation happens when you start questioning your fears the same way you question your limiting beliefs. Is this real, or am I just catastrophizing? What's the actual worst-case scenario here? Not the nightmare version, but the realistic one. And if that happened, could I handle it? Almost always the answer is yes. You could handle it. You'd figure it out. You'd survive. And adapt and keep going. But you've been treating fear like it's divine wisdom, instead of what it actually is, evidence that you're about to grow beyond your current comfort zone. Drop in the comments, "My fears don't own me," because that declaration, that refusal to let false evidence dictate your decisions, is what separates people who stay stuck from people who break through to the life they've been imagining. Once you stop letting fear run your decisions, once you can see through those phantom threats and move anyway, there's still one more invisible barrier that stops people from receiving the abundance they're working toward. It's your internal thermostat of deservingness. And this one is brutal, because most people don't even know it exists until they hit it. Here's how it works. You have a set point, an unconscious limit of how much success, how much money, how much good you believe you actually deserve. And you can hustle, you can visualize, you can do everything right, externally. But if what you're receiving exceeds what you unconsciously believe you deserve, you'll find ways to sabotage it. Not consciously. You're not deliberately trying to fail, but your subconscious has this thermostat set to a specific temperature. And when life heats up beyond that point, it kicks in to cool things back down to familiar levels. This is why people self-destruct right before major breakthroughs. Why someone finally gets the opportunity they've been chasing and then somehow torpedoes it with a careless mistake. Why money flows in and then immediately flows out through unexpected expenses or bad decisions. It's not bad luck. It's the thermostat doing its job, maintaining the temperature you've unconsciously set as appropriate for someone like me. I had my thermostat set embarrassingly low for years. I'd hit a certain level of income and suddenly I'd get sick or make a stupid business decision or sabotage a relationship that was going well. It took me forever to realize I was doing this to myself because somewhere deep down I didn't believe I deserved more than what I'd grown up seeing as normal. My parents struggled financially, so part of me felt like thriving beyond that was somehow a betrayal. Completely irrational, but that programming was running underneath everything. The shift starts with identifying where your thermostat is actually set. What level of income feels comfortable versus uncomfortable? What level of success feels appropriate versus too much for someone like me? When you imagine having serious wealth, what comes up? Excitement or discomfort? Certainty or this vague sense of, who am I kidding? Those reactions are showing you your set point. And if you want to receive more, you have to expand that set point through deliberate reprogramming. You challenge the beliefs that set the thermostat low in the first place. Where did you learn that you don't deserve abundance? Who told you there was a limit to what you could have? What experiences made you internalize that you're somehow less worthy than people who are thriving? Most of the time, these beliefs came from childhood, from well-meaning people who were just passing on their own limitations. But they're not truth. They're just inherited stories. And stories can be rewritten. Forgiveness is huge here. You have to forgive yourself for past mistakes, past failures, past choices you regret, because every time you hold on to guilt or shame, you're basically telling the universe, I don't deserve good things because I've done bad things, and that belief will block abundance faster than anything. You're not your past. You're not your worst moments. You're a person who's learning, growing, evolving, and you deserve abundance not because you've earned it through perfection, but because it's your birthright as a conscious being in an abundant universe. Then you affirm your worthiness daily, not just once, daily, until it becomes as natural as breathing. Until, when you look in the mirror, you see someone who undeniably deserves everything they're creating. This isn't arrogance. This is claiming what's always been true but was buried under years of conditioning. But here's the other side of this that people miss. You can believe you deserve abundance all day long, but if you don't know how to receive it, you're still blocking the flow. And most people are terrible at receiving. Absolutely terrible. Someone gives them a compliment and they deflect it. Someone offers help and they refuse. Someone wants to pay them generously and they feel uncomfortable, like it's too much. Every one of those moments is you closing the door to abundance, because the universe is always testing your capacity to receive. It starts small, a compliment, a kind gesture, an unexpected $20. And how you handle those small things determines whether you get access to the big things. If you can't receive a compliment graciously, why would the universe trust you? With $1 million, I started practicing receiving like it was a skill because I realized I was unconsciously pushing away everything good that came toward me. Someone would praise my work and I'd immediately minimize it. Someone would offer to help and I'd insist on doing it alone. I was operating from this idea that I had to earn and struggle for everything, that receiving without suffering for it somehow made me weak or undeserving. And that energy was repelling the very abundance I claimed to want. The transformation happens when you practice receiving the small things with total grace. Someone compliments you, simply say thank you and let it land. Someone offers help, accept it with gratitude. Someone wants to pay you more than you asked. Receive it as confirmation that you're valued. Each time you receive without deflecting, without minimizing, without feeling guilty, you're telling the universe, I'm open, I can handle this, send more. Leave a comment saying, I receive, with grace. Because that simple practice, learning to let good things in without resistance, is what expands your capacity to hold the abundance that's trying to reach you. Once you've learned to receive graciously, there's a practice that amplifies the entire process, and it's one that most people completely overlook because they're so focused on the big prize, they miss what's happening right in front of them. You have to celebrate everything, and I mean everything. Found a quarter on the street? Celebrate it. Got an unexpected discount? Celebrate it. Someone bought you coffee? Celebrate it like you just won the lottery. This sounds ridiculous to the logical mind. What's the point of celebrating small things when you're trying to manifest significant wealth? But here's what you're missing. Every celebration is a signal to the universe that you love receiving, that you recognize abundance when it shows up, that you want more experiences like this. You're training your nervous system to notice and appreciate the flow of good things, which opens you up to receive even more. Most people do the exact opposite. They receive something small and immediately think, "This isn't enough, I need more. When is the real money coming?" And that energy of not enough becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're literally ordering more insufficiency from the universe because that's the frequency they're broadcasting. But when you celebrate the dollar you found with genuine gratitude, when you appreciate the small win with the same energy, you'd appreciate a massive breakthrough. You're telling the universe, "Yes, more of this. I'm ready, I'm open, keep it coming." I started doing this obsessively, and it felt absurd at first, celebrating a free parking spot like it was a sign from the divine, getting excited about a $5 refund I wasn't expecting. But something shifted. The more I celebrated the small manifestations, the more of them showed up. And gradually, they got bigger. Because I'd conditioned myself to be someone who recognizes and appreciates abundance in all its forms, not just when it arrives in the exact package I'd been demanding. But here's where we need to get real about something nobody wants to talk about. Everything we've covered, the mindset shifts, the frequency adjustments, the practices, all of it comes with a price. And that price is you. The old version of you, the comfortable, familiar, small version that's been running your life until now. If you want the abundance, the success, the life you've been imagining, you have to be willing to let that old identity die. And that process, it's not comfortable. You're going to have to release your comfort zone, that cozy little bubble where everything is predictable and safe and mediocre. You're going to have to step into spaces that make you uncomfortable, take risks that scare you, do things that the old you would never have attempted, and your nervous system will fight this. It will scream that you're in danger, that you should retreat, that this isn't for people like you. But you have to move anyway. Some relationships aren't going to survive your evolution. This is harsh but true. There are people in your life right now who are comfortable with the current version of you. And when you start changing, when you start thinking bigger and acting bolder, they're going to feel threatened. Not because they're bad people, but because your growth reflects their stagnation. They'll try to pull you back down, sometimes subtly, sometimes directly, and you'll have to make the painful choice to create distance or let certain relationships fall away completely. Your old identity has to go. All those stories you've been telling yourself about who you are, what you're capable of, what's realistic for someone with your background. I'm not good with money. I'm just not a lucky person. People like me don't end up wealthy. Every one of those identities has to die for the new. You to emerge. And there's grief in that. Even when the old identity was limiting you, it was familiar. Killing it feels like losing a part of yourself, even though what you're actually doing is shedding dead skin. You'll have to release the need for everyone's approval. When you start pursuing real success, real wealth, real impact, not everyone is going to understand. Some will judge you. Some will call you greedy or say you've changed. Some will think you're being unrealistic or irresponsible. And if you need their approval, if you need everyone to validate your choices, you'll stay stuck. You have to be willing to be misunderstood, to be the odd one out, to walk alone if necessary. Absolute certainty. Gone. You'll have to make moves before you have all the answers, before you can see the entire path, before you know for sure it will work. That need to have everything figured out before you act. That's just fear disguised as prudence. You have to be willing to step into the fog, to make decisions with incomplete information, to trust yourself and the process even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. And maybe most importantly, you have to kill mediocrity as an option. You have to burn that bridge. No more, well, if this doesn't work out, I can always go back to. No safety net that's really just an escape hatch. No plan B that undermines your commitment to plan A. Mediocrity has to become completely unacceptable to you, so repulsive that you'd rather fail, spectacularly trying for greatness than succeed at living small. This is the price. It's not money, it's not time, it's who you've been. And honestly, it's worth it, because who you're becoming, that person who can hold abundance, who operates from power, who creates impact, that person is who you've always been meant to be. Write in the comments, I'm willing to pay the price, because that commitment, that acknowledgement that transformation requires sacrifice, is what separates the dreamers from the achievers. Once you accept that transformation demands letting go of who you've been, the question becomes, how do you make that sacrifice without it destroying you? Because there's a massive difference between conscious sacrifice and pointless suffering. Most people confuse the two. They think growth has to hurt, that if it's not painful, it's not real. But that's not true. Paying the price doesn't mean torturing yourself or grinding yourself into dust. It means making intentional exchanges. You're choosing temporary discomfort now for permanent freedom later. You're trading the comfort of staying small for the exhilaration of becoming who you're meant to be. When you frame it that way, when you really understand that what you're releasing was never serving you anyway, it stops feeling like loss. It starts feeling like liberation. The comfort zone wasn't actually comfortable. It was a cage. The relationships that fall away weren't actually nourishing you. They were draining you. The old identity wasn't protecting you. It was limiting you. I've watched people transform with joy once they stopped seeing growth as sacrifice and started seeing it as upgrade. They're not losing anything real. They're shedding what's dead so what's alive can finally breathe. And when you approach it from that place, when you're grateful for the opportunity to evolve, rather than resentful about what it costs, the entire process becomes lighter. You're not dragging yourself toward a better future. You're running toward it because you finally understand that everything you're letting go of was weighing you down. The shift in perspective is everything. Are you being forced to give up what you love, or are you choosing to release what no longer fits? Are you suffering through necessary pain, or are you investing in your extraordinary future? The external actions might look the same, but the internal experience is completely different. One depletes you, the other energizes you. One feels like punishment, the other feels like power. But even when you've made peace with paying the price, even when you're moving joyfully toward your vision, there's still this subtle trap that catches people. They're doing all the right things externally, taking action, making sacrifices, showing up consistently, but their internal state hasn't actually changed. They're going through the motions while still being the same person underneath. And the universe doesn't respond to your actions. It responds to your state of being. Your state of being is the totality of who you are in any given moment. It's the sum of your dominant thoughts, your prevailing emotions, your fundamental beliefs, your core identity. It's the frequency you're broadcasting even when you're not consciously thinking about anything. And that state, not your words, not your goals, not even your efforts, is what determines what you attract and experience. You can hustle 18 hours a day, but if your state of being is I'm not enough, you'll sabotage every opportunity. You can affirm abundance constantly, but if your state of being is scarcity, those affirmations are just noise. The universe reads what you are, not what you're trying to convince yourself or others you are. And until you actually become the frequency of what you desire, you're going to keep getting results that match who you currently are, not who you're trying to become. This is why all the inner work matters so much. You're not just changing your thoughts for the sake of feeling better. You're not just healing your money wounds because it's therapeutic. You're doing all of this to shift your actual state of being, to become someone different at the core. And once that shift happens, once you're genuinely operating from a different frequency, you don't have to work as hard externally because you're finally broadcasting the signal that matches what you want. Think about the difference between someone who's trying to be confident and someone who is confident. You can spot it instantly. The person who's trying has this performative quality. They're working hard to project something they don't actually feel. The person who is confident doesn't have to try. It radiates naturally because it's their state of being. Same with abundance. You can always tell the difference between someone who wants to be wealthy and someone who is wealthy in consciousness. One is chasing, the other is embodying. To attract wealth, you don't need to do more. You need to be more. You need to become the person for whom wealth is natural, normal, inevitable. And that becoming happens through every practice we've talked about. Changing your frequency, healing your relationship with money, practicing gratitude, embodying your abundant self, acting from inspiration rather than fear. All of it is designed to shift your state of being from person who lacks to person who has. Drop in the comments, I am the frequency I seek, because that recognition that you're not trying to get something external to fill an internal void, but rather becoming internally what you want to experience externally, is the master key that unlocks everything. Once you understand that you need to become the frequency of what you seek, there's one final paradox that separates masters from everyone else. And it's the hardest balance to strike because it seems to contradict everything we've talked about so far. You have to pursue your vision with absolute intensity while simultaneously surrendering completely to the outcome. You have to give everything you have while also releasing your grip on how and when it manifests. This sounds impossible, but it's actually where the real magic lives. Most people operate at one extreme or the other. They're either white-knuckling their goals, trying to control every variable, forcing outcomes through sheer willpower, or they're so detached they're basically passive, waiting for the universe to do all the work while they sit on the couch. Neither works. The forcing creates resistance and blocks the flow. The passivity creates stagnation and nothing moves. But when you can hold both truths simultaneously, intense action paired with complete trust, you become unstoppable. Think of it like an archer again. You pull the bow back with everything you have. Maximum tension, full focus, complete commitment to the target. But then you have to let go. You have to release the arrow and trust the physics. Trust your training. Trust that you've done your part and now the universe does its part. If you try to control the arrow mid-flight, you ruin everything. But if you never pull the bow in the first place, nothing happens. The mastery is in both, the full effort and the total release. This is what every spiritual tradition points to, but few people actually embody. Work like everything depends on you, but trust like everything depends on something greater than you. Give your absolute best, then surrender the results with faith. Pursue the vision relentlessly, but hold it loosely enough that you're not strangling it with desperation. The balance between doing and being, between effort and flow, between grasping and allowing, that's where manifestation accelerates exponentially. I had to learn this the hard way because I spent years oscillating between the extremes. I'd hustle obsessively, trying to force results and burn out. Then I'd swing to the other side, telling myself to just trust the universe, and nothing would happen. It wasn't until I learned to hold both energies at once, working my ass off while also being completely at peace with whatever came, that everything shifted. I could pour myself into my work without attachment to specific outcomes. I could be ambitious without being anxious. I could want something deeply without needing it desperately. But here's the thing most people miss about surrender. It's not about the future. It's not about letting go of your goals, or releasing your vision. It's about being okay right now in this moment, regardless of where you are on the journey. Real surrender is saying, in this moment, I'm okay, I'm enough, I have everything I need, and meaning it. Not as a way to settle for less, but as a foundation of peace from which you build more. This is the ultimate paradox. You're completely satisfied with where you are, and simultaneously hungry for where you're going. You're grateful for what you have, and ambitious for what you're creating. You're whole and complete right now, and you're also expanding into something greater. Most people think these states are contradictory. They think you have to be dissatisfied to be motivated, that you need to feel incomplete to have drive. But that's scarcity thinking. The truth is, the most powerful creators operate from wholeness, not lack. They're not chasing abundance to fill a void. They're expressing abundance that's already overflowing. They don't need the next level to feel worthy. They're already worthy and choosing to expand anyway. Not from desperation, from inspiration. Not from emptiness, from fullness. And that shift in orientation changes everything about how you show up, how you move, what you attract. When you can find genuine peace in this moment, not complacency, but real okayness with what is, while also holding a clear vision of what's becoming, you're living in that perfect paradox. You're not postponing your happiness until you hit your goals. You're not making your peace contingent on future achievements. You're at peace now, and that peace gives you the clarity, energy, and magnetism to create what's next without the desperate energy that repels it. This is the state where miracles happen, where synchronicities become normal, where the path unfolds effortlessly even as you're working intensely, because you're no longer split between present dissatisfaction and future hope. You're whole right now, expanding from that wholeness, trusting that every step is perfect even when it doesn't look like progress. Put down, I'm whole and becoming, because that statement captures the entire paradox. You're already complete and you're still evolving, already enough and still expanding, at peace now and excited for what's emerging. Once you've found that balance between striving and surrender, between being complete now and expanding into more, there's one final revelation that collapses everything we've been building toward. And it's going to sound radical at first, maybe even delusional, but stay with me because this is the shift that changes everything permanently. You are already rich, not working toward being rich, not on your way to becoming rich, already rich. Right now, in this moment. Your logical mind just rejected that completely, didn't it? It's looking at your bank account, your bills, your current situation, and screaming, that's objectively false. But here's what you're missing. You're physical. Circumstances are just echoes of your past consciousness. They're lagging indicators showing you who you were, not who you are now. The reality you're experiencing today was created by the thoughts, beliefs, and frequency you were broadcasting weeks, months, maybe years ago. That's old news, old energy, old you. True wealth isn't in your bank account. It never was. True wealth is in your consciousness, in your connection to the infinite creative source that's been flowing through you since the moment you were born. That connection has never been broken. Not when you were broke, not when you failed, not when you made terrible decisions. The spring of abundance we talked about earlier, it's still flowing. Right now, you're swimming in it. You just haven't recognized it yet because you've been so focused on the lack showing up in your material world that you miss the abundance that's everywhere else. Look around you right now, not at what you don't have, but at what is. You're breathing without trying. Your heart is beating without conscious effort. You have thoughts, infinite thoughts, available to you at any moment. You can imagine anything, create anything in your mind. That's abundance. The fact that you're conscious, that you exist, that you have the capacity to change your reality through choice. That's wealth beyond measure. But we've been conditioned to only see wealth in dollar signs, to only recognize abundance when it shows up in our bank accounts. The universe itself is evidence of infinite abundance. Look at the night sky, billions of stars, most of which we can't even see. Look at a beach, try counting the grains of sand. Look at your own body, trillions of cells working in perfect harmony without you doing anything. Look at nature, trees don't worry about having enough leaves, oceans don't stress about running out of water, the earth doesn't ration sunlight. Abundance is the fundamental nature of reality. Scarcity is the anomaly. Scarcity is the story we made up and then started believing was truth. You're not trying to create abundance from scratch. You're trying to recognize the abundance that's already saturating every moment of your existence. It's like a fish suddenly becoming aware of water after spending its whole life swimming in it. The water was always there. The fish was always surrounded by it. It just didn't have the awareness to see it. You're that fish, and the ocean you're swimming in is infinite possibility, infinite resources, infinite creative potential. Every breath is abundance, every idea is abundance, every connection, every skill you've developed, every piece of knowledge you've gained, every relationship that nourishes you, all of it is wealth. But we've been so hypnotized by the material scoreboard that we've become blind to the actual riches we're already experiencing. And that blindness, that inability to see the abundance that already is, keeps us locked in the frequency of scarcity, which keeps creating more experiences of lack. The shift happens when you start recognizing abundance everywhere. When you look at a tree and see millions of leaves and think, that's what the universe does. It creates with extravagant abundance. When you look at the stars and realize, I'm part of a universe that creates on an infinite scale. When you look at your own mind and recognize, I have access to unlimited creativity, unlimited ideas, unlimited potential. That recognition, that shift from seeing scarcity to seeing the abundance that's actually present, changes your frequency instantly. And when your frequency changes, your reality follows. Not because you're creating something new, but because you're finally tuning into what was already there. You're adjusting your perception to see what was always true, but hidden by the filter of scarcity thinking. You're waking up to the wealth you've been carrying all along. Write in the comments, I see the abundance that is. Because that declaration, that choice to recognize rather than create, to see what's already present rather than focus on what appears to be missing, is the final piece that makes everything else click into place. Once you recognize the abundance that already exists all around you and within you, there's one truth left that either liberates you completely or terrifies you, depending on how you receive it. Everything, and I mean absolutely everything about your financial reality, your success, your life, depends entirely on you. Not the universe, not luck, not your circumstances, your past, the economy, the government, your parents, or anyone else. You, just you. And that realization is either the most empowering or the most overwhelming thing you'll ever confront. Most people spend their entire lives avoiding this truth because accepting it means accepting responsibility. Total responsibility. No more blaming external factors. No more waiting for conditions to be perfect. No more excuses about why it's not working yet. You are the creator of your reality. You're the architect designing the blueprint. You're the artist with the brush in your hand right now, and you get to decide whether you paint a masterpiece or settle for something forgettable. This is simultaneously the greatest gift and the heaviest burden of being human. You have power, genuine creative power, to shape your experience of life. But with that power comes complete accountability. You can't have it both ways. You can't claim your power to create abundance while also blaming circumstances for your lack. You can't be the conscious creator of your wealth while simultaneously being the victim of your situation. You have to choose. And here's what that choice actually looks like in practice. It means when something goes wrong, your first thought isn't, "Why is this happening to me?" but "What am I creating here, and how do I want to respond?" It means when you're not getting the results you want, you look inward at your frequency, your beliefs, your actions, not outward at who or what to blame. It means recognizing that every single thing showing up in your reality is there because some part of you called it in, consciously or unconsciously. That level of ownership is rare. Most people will read this, nod along, maybe feel inspired for a day or two, and then slip right back into victim consciousness the moment things get hard. Because victim consciousness, for all its pain, is comfortable. It lets you off the hook. It gives you someone to blame. It means you don't have to change because the problem is out there, not in here. But the people who actually transform their lives, who actually build lasting wealth and success, they take the hit. They accept full responsibility even when it's uncomfortable, even when they could legitimately blame external factors, even when playing victim would be easier. They understand that blame might feel good temporarily, but it's poison to power. The moment you give away responsibility, you give away your ability to change your circumstances. So the question isn't whether you understand everything we've talked about. The question is, are you willing to own it? Are you willing to look at your current financial reality and say, "I created this consciously or unconsciously, and now I'm going to consciously create something different"? Are you willing to stop waiting for permission, for perfect conditions, for someone to save you, and instead step fully into your role as the creator of your experience? Because here's what happens the moment you truly accept that it all depends on you. You stop being powerless. You stop being at the mercy of circumstances. You stop waiting for the universe to fix things. You realize that if you created this current reality, even the parts you don't like, then you absolutely have the power to create a different one. And that realization is where everything we've been building toward finally becomes real. This entire journey we've been on together, all these insights and practices and revelations, they're not just interesting ideas to think about, they're tools you now have access to. The invisible book has opened for you. You've been shown what very few people ever discover. And now comes the moment where knowledge either becomes power or becomes another thing you once learned and forgot. Your legend isn't something that might happen someday if you're lucky. Your legend begins the moment you decide it does. The moment you stop seeing yourself as someone hoping to be wealthy and start seeing yourself as someone who is wealthy in consciousness, just waiting for the material to catch up. The moment you stop asking if you can and start declaring that you will. The moment you take everything you've learned here and actually live it instead of just understanding it. Drop in the comments, "My legend begins now," because that declaration, that decision to stop being a student of wealth consciousness and start being a practitioner, to stop waiting for someday and start creating today, is the dividing line between your old life and everything that comes next. If you made it this far, if you've been with me through this entire journey, you're not here by accident. Something in you recognized the truth in what we've been talking about. Something in you is ready for this shift. And I want you to know that matters. The fact that you stayed, that you absorbed this, that you're still here, that already tells me you're different from most people who would have clicked away after the first few minutes. This channel exists for people like you. People who aren't satisfied with surface-level advice and motivational fluff. People who want the real mechanisms, the actual principles that create transformation. And if that resonates with you, if you want more content that cuts this deep, hit that subscribe button. Because what we do here isn't about algorithms or going viral. It's about reaching the people who are actually ready to do the work and change their lives. Before you go, leave me a comment. Just write, "This message was for me." That's it. Because when I see that, I know this landed where it needed to land. I know someone out there is about to shift their entire reality based on what we talked about today. And honestly, that's why I do this. And if this connected with you, if something clicked or shifted while you were watching, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps more people find this content, sure, but more than that, it's a signal between us. It tells me you got it, you're in, you're ready. Now there's a video right here that takes what we just covered even deeper. It's the perfect next step if you're serious about this transformation. Click it and continue with me over there. Let's keep this momentum going. I'll see you in the next one.